How's it going? I hope you guys are enjoying your week. Apparently, the first week of fall happening here in early August. But just have a few things I wanted to share with you before we head into this weekend. It is our final weekend in the series of life hacks, which has been an incredible series. I think it truthfully went a lot better than what we thought it would. It's very heavy, relevant topics that we've been able to talk about, and I think it's had a lot of people churning. It's been messing with a lot of people, and that's always a good thing. It's what we want to do is we want to push people into these conversations that they may not want to have, but that God is saying, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to take care of this. And so it's been really cool. But this week is actually the final life hack that David is going to be talking on, and it's conversations with God. And so with that, what I actually wanted to do is I want to start splitting up our time just a little bit to where we can focus on something for us as a team and how we handle our teams, but then something to pass on to our volunteers as well. When I led the greeting team a few weeks ago, I realized that I wasn't giving you guys great information to pass on to the volunteers in terms of helping them engage with guests, and that's one of the big things we want to do. That's our vision, and we want to promote that. And so there's going to be a couple different things that we focus on in these videos and in our time, so we can kind of invest in our team, but then also cast that vision to their team, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I want to start doing, and it's something that us as a staff, or at least in our Next Steps core, that we're going to be focused on, is a new structure in terms of kind of how to measure how well we're doing. If you're like me, I'm very competitive. I like to keep score, and not to see who's winning, but to see where we're doing well and areas we need to do a little bit better. And so we have this great kind of evaluation that we're going to be using, and there's 4 of them, and I wanted to share with you guys because I want you to start looking at your teams and evaluating each one of these every week. So the first one is recruiting. Are we recruiting? The second one is development. Are we developing the people we have on our teams? The third one is energy. Am I building energy into my teams through vision casting and appreciation? The fourth one is process and procedures. That's of course the detailing, like, are we doing what we need to do? Are we putting people in place at the right time in the right spots to make sure everything goes smoothly? That's how we're going to start evaluating a lot of the areas in our roles, just to kind of determine, okay, this is where we're doing really well, this is where we can get a little bit better. So the thing I want us to do this week is I want you to begin by evaluating our team. This group of coordinators and leaders at the East location. I want you to evaluate us on recruiting, development, energy, and process and procedures. And truthfully, just on a scale of 1 to 5. Which one, 1 being the lowest, and when I say lowest, it's the lowest focus, we're doing the least, and then 5 is where we're doing the most. And so it's recruiting, development, energy, process, and procedures. Those 4 things, I'm bad at counting, those 4 things are just a great way to measure, okay, how am I doing in terms of, my role as a leader in my team. So that's for us to kind of help us measure as a leader, where are we growing, where do we need to continue to grow. Now this is the part that I want us to be casting into our teams, and that is Pastor David is going to be talking about our conversations with God in terms of prayer, which I love because prayer is a big part of spiritual maturity, and truthfully it's not something I think we talk about enough. And so I'm really excited that he's going to be focused on conversations with God and prayer. But one of the things he brings up that I wanted to share now, so we can cast this into our teams and we can just be sharing this with everybody, is our conversations with God reveal our role with God. And he breaks it down. In the Bible, there are 3 roles that we can have. And we can only be one of them. We can't be all 3, or we can't be a mix. We're generally only one of them. And that is, we can see our role with God as a slave, as an orphan, or as a son or daughter, as a child of God. See, Jesus and God want us to see ourselves as children of Him, because we are. We are God's children. But sometimes we look at ourselves as a slave, where He is, yes, He's our master, but we aren't deserving of His blessing. We are down here, and we can't ask to be in His presence. We can't have a relationship with Him. There's a separation. When there's a slave and master relationship specifically, it's not a good relationship. That's why Jesus says we're His children. The orphan is, yes, I'm being raised by Him, but I'm not really a part of the family. When somebody's an orphan, they're parentless, and sometimes with God we feel parentless. Well, again, He's saying, no, you're my children. And then, of course, there's son and daughter, somebody who believes I can go to my God with anything. I can talk to Him like He is my Father. We can have a conversation, and I can ask for things. I can sit here and listen to Him. I can be in His presence knowing that this is what He wants as well. And we want to get to a place where we know that we are God's son or daughter, that we are His children. So the thing that I want you to ask yourselves and ask your team is this: what role do you believe you play in terms of your relationship with God? When it comes to your praying, when you talk with God, because that's when it reveals. Do you talk to Him like you're a slave, like you're an orphan, or like you're His child? And I wanted to give you a quick example to just try and help us. So John Eldridge, I think it's Eldridge or Etheridge, one of the two, the author, he gives a story about how his kids, when they come back from college, they go through, they go back to their parents' house, they eat all their parents' food, they borrow their dad's clothing and fishing equipment, and they basically, everything in the house is theirs, because they know that this is our parents. They're going to let us have this stuff. They're not going to make us buy the food that's in their fridge. They're not going to make us fend for themselves. They're our parents. They're going to provide for us. And so I can go to them and ask for this stuff knowing they're going to provide for me. That's the relationship that a child and a parent have. That's not something that a slave has with their master, or an orphan with their caretaker. That's the type of conversation, that's the type of relationship a child has. And so when you talk to God, you go to Him knowing, yes, He'll provide for me. If I ask, He'll provide, because what He has, I have. He's sharing with me because I'm His children. So I want you to ask them, what role do you play? But then I want to give a follow-up. I want us this weekend, specifically since it's this, to make sure that we are letting people at church know that they are children of God. When they walk in, that they know that this is their Father's house, that when they ask for something, He's providing out of His love because He's their parent. Are we, in our interactions with them, and how we're talking, and how we're acting, and all that, are we engaging them in a way that shows them, hey, you're God's child? Because that's the way we want to be engaging them, especially, not just every week, but this week especially. So that's what I want to encourage you to share with your teams. Cast that vision. Hey, this week, you make sure that the people who you talk to know that they are children of God. With that, I'm going to put in the email that we are starting this next week, the devotion on the YouVersion Bible app. It's called Share Jesus, Give and Go. You'll see it in the email. Share Jesus, or Go and Give Life. We're going to start that starting this next week. If you don't exactly know what I'm talking about, we'll make sure to explain that, but we're going to start our devotion. Nick is going to be leading guest services this week. Thank you for everyone who came to the barbecue. We had leftover ribs, which means this week I had to be eating a bunch of ribs. I struggled through it. I survived. But also, just a prayer and praise. Jill Rigglesworth has finished her second surgery. She is at home resting, thankfully, and so just be continuing to pray for her. But I love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.